Hi. You know, you all do something every day that you don't even think about. You operate on symbols. Hi, I'm the symbologist, Miss Michelle Snyder. I am the founder and vice president of FRIA, which is an archive of the work of Dr. Ensman's life. In it, I have found tremendous amounts of fascinating material pertaining to the world of symbols. So I'm a graduate of the Ensman Archive. I'm also best-selling author of 14 books. Welcome to this adventure. The three secrets are the golden keys to interpreting symbols. I will talk about the secrets and some rules. And then we will see some examples of using this knowledge. And then we will decode some images. So welcome, come along. This will be fun. So I've been drawing since age 2. I taught art for decades, watched people create things from their imaginations. It was magnificent. But then I landed in a wheelchair in 2001, and it's tough to teach art in a classroom from a wheelchair. So I had to make lemonade from lemons. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Well, that year we read the Da Vinci Code, and it's a great story. Probably not everybody's read it or seen the movie, but it inspired me because of the main character, Robert Langdon. He was a symbologist. So I'm thinking to myself, well, what's a symbologist? Sounded really intriguing. So I talked to Dr. Ensman about it, and he said, I can mentor you through your post-grad degree work and turn you into a world-class symbologist. And he has done that. And during my research with him, I found symbols like the RX symbol, which caught my attention. So I had to have a paradigm shift about prehistory. This is an Ice Age inscription on stone. It's not very big, a couple inches, and it's written by the matriarch of the clans that would organize to hunt mammoths. And in this function, she brought her medicine with her. Now, this is a 12,500-year-old RX symbol. Many symbols trace back tens of thousands of years. So that's just a little taste of what there is when you really dive in to the history of the symbols that we see almost every day here. So how many symbols do you see every day? I don't even think you can answer that question. I think that is unknowable. I mean, think about it. You have to know what symbols mean just to navigate your computer or read a map. So where do they come from? What do they mean? Now, did you know that the save disk, the save symbol on your computer is a floppy disk? So how old is that symbol? It's a decade or two. You know, we speak in symbols. Words are verbal symbols. We dream in symbols. Symbolism is the language of the mind. Our ancestors recorded their lives with symbols, letters, numbers, maps, road signs, ads, menus, media, books, airports. Human communication is done with symbols and always has been. Now, humans create knowledge, and then we had to create language to express this knowledge. We want to express our perception of reality, our dreams, our beliefs, our story. We store our knowledge on stones and scrolls and books and videos. There are libraries of symbols back throughout time. So yes, symbols are an important language. So what is a symbol? I mean, you can think about that in terms of image, icon. There's all kinds of things that are symbols, but the basic definition of a symbol is that it is an abstraction of an idea, a thing, or a concept. So what is a symbologist? Well, a symbologist studies symbols. Now, a symbology is a symbol system, a communication system, like English is a symbology. Well, so is Egyptian, so is alchemy, so is tarot. Those are all symbol systems. So a symbologist studies those and does comparative studies in the world of symbologies. So how do you understand a symbol? Well, first you have to know that language starts with nouns, with things. So what nouns can you see here? What major nouns can you see? Well, this is a drawing of a centaur, of Sagittarius. This alludes to Chiron in Greek history. He was an astronomer, a physician, a musician, a strategist, an archer, and a warrior. Now, he taught heroes like Hercules and Asclepius. His king wanted him to be honored and remembered, so they put him in the sky as a constellation pattern. If you think about this, a centurion leads 100 soldiers. Well, a centaur leads 100 horseback archer warriors. Now, I asked you what nouns you can see. You can see a horse, and you can see a man, and you can see a bow and arrow. Well, that's actually 2 nouns. So there's 4. So this will tell you, if you look at the nouns it is made of and how they're put together, what the story is talking about. So now concepts like love and pi, they're huge. Can you imagine being a scientist and having to write pi all the time in numbers? And love is huge. It's almost impossible to write about just in words. Now, these concepts, temperance, fortitude, prudence, and justice, are symbolized by women. Now, temperance, philosophy, let's start at the beginning. This philosophy is traced to Plato and Aristotle. Temperance symbolizes self-discipline, moderation, and control over desires. Prudence symbolizes wisdom and practical judgment in decision-making. Fortitude indicates courage to face difficulties and remain steadfast. And justice symbolizes fairness and giving each their due. Now, this philosophy is traced back to Plato and Aristotle, but it was adopted into Christianity by St. Ambrose and St. Thomas Aquinas. And together, these 4 symbols, when you pair them with faith, hope, and charity, which are theological virtues, they oppose the 7 deadly sins. It says participate in wisdom, which is more valuable than rubies. Now, this symbol system, this philosophy carries a lot of wisdom. And these concepts are way too complicated. It would take volumes, and has taken volumes, to write about them in words. So a symbol is a shortcut, and you can understand it just by looking. Now, just by looking brings us to the subject of archetypal symbols, which represent fundamental human experiences universally recognized. A villain, water, mother and child. They transcend culture. They transcend geography. They even transcend time. These symbols are so well understood by humanity through generations that they bypass your logical thinking that you have to use when you look at numbers or letters or sentences or even some symbols. They just go directly to your associative function. They're very powerful symbols to use in creative works. They're powerful ideas to express in words, because you can say mother and child with words and immediately everyone knows what you mean. You could take a picture of a mother and child to an African village and they would know what it was, because all humans experience things like the sun and water and mother and child, and they have for millennia, since there's been a mother and child, and that's a very long time. So let's talk about the 3 secrets. I did mention 3 secrets. So this picture is under the rose, which is a symbol of the philosophy sub rosa, which means secret. And it comes from the Renaissance age, and you can look it up. But the three secrets are: first, look, really see. The second secret is notice patterns and count things. And the third secret is notice the relationships of the parts. So let's practice this now. We'll look at some pictures and we'll apply the three secrets. Now, first, I said secret number one is to look and really see. Most people look at stuff, but they don't really see it all. And any FBI agent or police officer will tell you this is true, because you've got a group of witnesses. They've all seen the same event, and they don't all remember it the same way, because we don't all see the same things. Now, this is the Aztec sunstone, which you may or may not be familiar with, especially from 2012, when the world was supposed to end. But did you notice that in the middle of this sunstone, there is an image of a Greek Gorgon? Now, there's Greek and Aztec. First of all, they're two different cultures, but there's the image. It's drawn in a different artistic style, but it is a Greek Gorgon. Now, the Greek Gorgon shown here is from 1100-ish BC, and the Aztec calendar is from the first millennium AD. So that's interesting. And I never noticed this. Actually, it was my husband, Jay, who saw that. And he said, whoa, look at this, because he looked at it. He looked at all the parts. He looked at what was there. So that's secret number one. Now, secret number two is notice patterns. There's patterns everywhere. Your wallpaper, your Christmas decorations. I'm not telling you to count the patterns in wallpaper. But when you look at a symbol, it's important. And not only should you notice the patterns, you should count its parts. So notice patterns and count. Now, people don't tend to do this at all, because we're surrounded by so many things we are taking in visually that it's not something we just do. You have to actually deliberately do it. So let's take this picture of the sun god. Now, it's Helios, or whoever you want to call him. And there's many, many symbols of the sun god. But did you ever count the number of horses there are in the sun god illustrations? I would say 99% of the time, there are 4. So what does that tell you? If they're always 4, it's got to be part of what the symbol means. So think about this. The sun god brings the chariot carrying the sun around the world every day after day, month after month, year after year. So what do days and months make up? What are there 4 of in a year? Well, there's seasons. So the sun god brings the chariot of sun around the world through the 4 seasons. That's why it's important to count the parts of patterns. And we'll see another example in a minute. So secret number 3 is, what parts are there? Count them. How many of the rays are there? Well, 2, 4, 6, 8. There are 8. Well, 8 in symbolism usually alludes to Venus. Well, the next question is, how do the parts relate to each other? So there are 8 rays. And what else do you see? Remember the nouns. What other nouns are there? There is an eye, and it looks like a sort of a rendition of a human eye. I mean, it's not an octopus eye, although they're very clever too. So the rays emanate from or connect to the eye. So it's interesting to know that this symbol goes back 50,000 years. So what did it originally mean? So you have an eye, and you have an allusion to Venus. What kind of an eye looks at Venus? You have to ask yourself these questions, because the parts are there. And so it's a reasonable question. Well, an astronomer looks at Venus. This symbol actually meant a master astronomer. It also now symbolizes the third eye of metaphysics and other things. Today, it has some evil associations, but its original meaning was that of a master astronomer. So now I've told you about the three secrets, and we've looked at those examples. Now, I said there were rules. Well, there are. There's always rules. You got to look at the rules. And context is the king of rules. So if you look at this image that I have up here, there's a word that it's tough to read. Why? Because they're not in the right pattern. So context will tell you, you got to ask some questions. Where was it made or found? Who made it? When was it made? And what is it made of or made on? Now, this should lead to the how, or how it was used should lead to the why, which is the meaning. So where, who, when, what, and how will lead to why. So context. Let's look at some context. Now, here you have four images. You've got a ruler and you have a ruler. So why is a ruler called a ruler? Well, a ruler, as you see with the inches and things on it, is used for measurement. Now, it's interesting through my studies to discover that a ruler is called a ruler because he or she dictates the value of things that are measured, like taxes and property. They are the kings of what things are worth. So symbols, so you got a ruler and a ruler. Now, symbols change their meaning with context and culture. For example, some cultures, like ours, think that black cats are bad luck, but other cultures, it's white cats that are bad luck. So what culture was this symbol used in or made in? It's the same as asking what language it is in. Now, there's a whole bunch of languages that have written the word cat. And the only one I can read, because I was raised in the English symbology, is the last one. But I looked it up. They all mean cat. So context is king. Now, one of the things I understood after studying symbology for a long time is that most symbols have an astronomical meaning or a beginning. Many of them come from astronomy. So here's something. Do you know how to find the northern star outside at night? This is one thing that you will find is very important, especially throughout history. Before we had a computer GPS system to tell you when to take a left and a right, you had to know north because stars were your map. So knowing north was also fundamental to navigation. Even today, a captain of a ship needs to know his astronomy. So if you go outside at night and you find the pattern of the Big Dipper and you follow the line from its bowl, it will point to Polaris. Now, remember Hermes, if you know who Hermes was, he made the green tablet, the emerald tablet. So Hermes on the emerald tablet wrote as above, so below. Yes, there are microcosm and macrocosm meanings, but in essence, if you look at this, if you know your stars above, you will know where you are below. You know, north is Polaris today, but that's not always true. So this is to provide some context. Since much of the ancient symbols that are at the root of a lot of ones we see, it's good to understand the astronomy that they were based on. So I was asking you, telling you that the North Star was not always Polaris because of the great year, which is 2600 regular years. Because of the tilt of the Earth, our North Pole kind of cycles in a circle from Polaris to Vega and back. It doesn't go to Vegas, it goes to Vega. Now, often that means that north is a dark space in the sky. So in order for them to calculate north, they had to draw a circle in the dark space and then find the center of the circle. So 10,000 years ago, Deneb was north, and it's in the Cygnus constellation. So for context for some of the stories, like the Swan Princess and Mother Goose rhymes and Valkyries, they all started then when Cygnus was north, because stories are easier to remember than facts and numbers. So they told stories, and the stories were there to help the generations remember where north was, because they had to have it. They needed to know where north was. So the next Deneb north will be approximately 9800 AD. So you don't have to worry about relearning it. That's fine. You'll make it. So another important astronomical lesson to have, we started when we said the I alluded to Venus. Now, this is a picture of the synodic series that Venus and Earth, from Earth, that Venus makes when she is traveling around. Now, Venus's clock is accurate to a split second, and we used it to set Earth's clocks. As a matter of fact, Venus was discovered 5000 BC. That's a long time to use one clock. Now, it's thought to be a star in prehistory. It's very bright in the sky. So Venus, as observed from Earth, makes a pentagram in the sky every 8 and then every 40 years. So this is the difference. Pentagrams have 72 degrees between the points. So every 8 years, Venus is back where she started to almost exactly. And then in 40 years, she is back on the nose, accurate to the second. So the pentagram was a great clock. Now, they calculated longitude when Venus was discovered. So they've known longitude since 6000 BC when the megalith mariners did this. And they used Venus and I think Sirius, and they calculated longitude. This facilitated navigation, it facilitated trade and defense, and they did this more effectively all year round, which is why the pentagram has long been thought of as a symbol for wealth, especially in the tarot symbology. Now, the Venus clock and longitude were trade secrets. We have trade secrets. Companies have trade secrets. So it's also the basis of mythology. So if you ever asked yourself, why is Venus a goddess? Jupiter and Mars, they're gods. But Venus was discovered by the megalith mariners, navigators, who were women. So to remember, to teach that Venus was discovered by women, she became a goddess. Now, Venus rises on one side of the sun for 9 months and sets on the other side for 9 months. That's an interesting number, isn't it? And what's really interesting is that she doesn't dance with Mars. They attract, they go away, they come closer, they go away. And along the way, they had a child they named Cupid, which explains a hopeless romantic running around with a quill full of arrows. And interestingly, Cupid's arrows can cause someone to fall hopelessly in love, but they can also make someone repelled. And that is the astronomy of those two planets. So that is told in the Cupid story. So let's look at some patterns that happened through a series of symbols, not within the same symbol, but a pattern that is seen over millennia. Now, if you look at these images, they're all kings or queens or gods or goddesses in the top row. They all have something in common. They have a rod and a cord. Now, those are symbols of wisdom. The rod and the cord symbolized wisdom because they were the tools of measurement. Now, they're imaged in the hands of kings and queens. It was a standard measure of length. Now, this was derived from the tools used by the megalith builders to measure time and distance, the rod, the cord, and the pendulum. So they're powerful, fundamental tools for time and distance. Now, the rod alludes to the Asherah pole, for which is, you have two poles or two standing stones. You can measure how long it takes for a star to get from the point of one to the point of the other. So those were tools for measuring stars, which is time. The cord was a megalithic yard. When you're building megaliths for astronomical purposes, they have to be accurate. And so you need an accurate, consistent measuring device. These megaliths show up all over the globe. And the pendulum is used for numerating time. Now, those who could predict time and seasons were considered powerful, and they were essential to the villages and the cultures to survive because they were able to calculate the heavenly stars, recognize the patterns, and they could tell you when winter was coming or when the floods were coming. It was important. So on the bottom, you see a relief sculpture of the same thing. And then there's two horseback warriors with the same thing. And then in Masonic tradition, there's initiation, and the initiate has a rod and a cord. I find that really interesting. So here's another example. We see the same thing here. It's a pattern. It's bare knees. So if you see inside the circles, the knees are bare. And this alludes to the king and the goddess of wisdom. They're both with bare knees, and this is a symbol that they will mutually cooperate to rule and govern together, mutually and cooperatively. So the rod and the cord is sharing and exchanging knowledge. Now, other interesting things in this symbol are you see him holding the lion on the left-hand image. Now, holding the lion denotes understanding time. In the middle, she has her foot on the lion, and that denotes a control of time. She's an angel. Now, on this angel, coming up from her chest is a weird rod, and that, I was told by Dr. Ensman, denotes an astronomical time. I just never found out which one, but that's a time indication. So those are some symbols that you looked at, where you look at the patterns within one symbol and then looked at patterns that repeat over many symbols. So I've talked about the secrets and rules. We've looked at some examples of using this knowledge. We've decoded some images. So I have a free offer for you. Take advantage of this free offer and talk one-on-one on the phone to me. Just scan the barcode and go to Calendly and schedule a free 20-minute phone call. We'll just talk all about you. You can discover the secrets of the world of symbols with me. Unlock your creative powerhouse. Scan it now. Schedule a free call. Be curious. I have many, many products and classes and videos, and you'll want to know which ones are best for you, and we can figure that out. So thank you for your interest in the fascinating world of symbols. You can find more stuff and info at my website, which is thesymbologist.com, thesymbologist.com. You can listen to my free podcast called The Golden Key. Now, symbolism is a fascinating world, and I have lived here for many decades. All my books, both fiction and nonfiction, are based on the knowledge that I have of living in this world, and they're all available on my website, thesymbologist.com, or you can scan the QR codes that are along the top. There's one for my website, one for my blog, which has free articles that are really cool. And then you can listen to the podcast with one. And then I have a speakers page. If you would like to schedule me to be a speaker at an event you're having, I have 5 really good presentations, and they're explained on my speaker page. So I'm very excited to have spent this time with you. Please call me. We'll have some offering for you that will be irresistible. Have a wonderful day.